Begin the current Daf Mesechtes Bava Kama Daf Kuf Daled. Begin on the bottom of Kuf Gimel Mabez, 6 lines up at the bottom of the Amud, where the Gemara is in the middle of a conversation, different teachings of Rava regarding concerns about theft. Just like we were speaking about, like how we allowed to use the bridges if the government is stealing people's trees inappropriately, and that was part of the conversation of Dina Machosadina. The Gemara continues regarding other concerns about buying things that might be problematic that they're stolen. Throughout the entire world. Grace Simcha, Tevle Mishta Tamid, Perm Cotton, Malstov on the Bris, Bizan Beita Bismana, Mamish Balt, Sachi Dishnachas. So we're discussing today's daf are the next Mishnah we're going to discuss regarding the tax collectors. If they take someone's donkey and they give them a different one. So it's like when you get the coat, one's taken from you and you get one back. Halachas are shalah. You could get to keep it even though it's someone else's because the Ba'al Mamas Yashman, they give up hope, so it's not a problem about receiving it from the tax collector. The Gemara gets into a discussion regarding Yish Kadi, if just Yish itself is a kinyan, regarding if someone saves something from the river or from bandits, if the owner's miyayish, he gets to keep it. It gets into a conversation about Stam Yish. Do we assume that the owner is going to be miyayish? The Gemara differentiates between if the bandits are Jewish or not Jewish. Regarding Nechil Shal Devayim, regarding if a stream of bees go onto someone's branch, if you're allowed to go ahead and take the guy's branch, Al Stakana. And Masich Lefi Tumah, the Gemara discussed regarding if someone innocently says something regarding if we believe them. So begin the current Daf Kuf Gimel Mabez, 6 lines off at the bottom of the Yamah. The Gemara says, V'amar Rava. We're talking about many teachings of Rava. He says, Hani de Dairi Dari. These are non-Jews that have animals, and they fertilize from these animals different people's fields for wages. They get paid because you have to fertilize fields, so they take their animals around. So if it's b'teichat chum, if they're within the boundaries of the city limits, also likach mehem, you're not allowed to purchase from them one of their animals. My time, what's the reason? Because we're concerned that the Jewish people's animals, you see a flock of animals, you get connected to the other animals. We're concerned that maybe they're Jewish animals that got connected. But if it's out of the boundaries of the city, then you're allowed to buy from them. We have no concern that these animals are stolen. Now, however, Amar Avinu says, but if the owners were running after those non-Jewish shepherds, then even out of the tchum is going to be forbidden, again, because we're concerned that the Jews' animals are in there. Machriz Rava, again, another statement from Rava announced, some say it was Rav Huna, the Sulkin La'ela, those who go up to Eretz Yisrael, and the Nachsan Latata and come down from Eretz Yisrael to here to Bavel, should know the following idea. Hai Bar Yisrael, a Jew, the other Sadus Lakuti, that knows testimony for a non-Jew. And the non-Jew is not petitioning, is not summoning the Jew to testify. And then he goes and he testifies in the non-Jewish courts against his fellow Jew. We excommunicate that Jew. My time, what's the reason? Because the non-Jews are going to extract money as we continue to the top of Kofi Daled, apum dechad, based on one person. They don't have halacha al pishnaim edim yakum davar. One person's testimony, they're going to collect money. Comes out that you cause a loss to the Jew not according to halacha. So therefore, if they didn't summon the Jew and he testifies, he's excommunicated. Now, we didn't say that it's forbidden elachad. Only if there's one witness. I'll betray lie, but if there's two witnesses, then it's not a problem. Because halacha would allow two witnesses. The problem is, Tais on the top here asks, he says, what are you talking about? Not paying a non-Jew is called hafkais halva, is not paying back. If that's the case, we already said in the previous daf that a Jew doesn't have to pay up to the non-Jew. And if that's the case, it causes him a huge loss, because if he wants to, he could have just denied the whole thing. So he says, yeah, but still, we're not going to excommunicate a Jew since it's really making the guy pay what he's obligated. Yeah, he can get out of it, but that we wouldn't excommunicate two Jewish witnesses who would testify. Now, it continues, the Gemara qualifies even further. We didn't say we're going to excommunicate the singular Jewish witness if he goes to the non-Jewish courts. Megista is like the villages. The villages, they don't know how to really judge appropriately, and they'll prosecute based on one witness. Al-Beit Davar, but regarding the government, Inunami, they also chad, when there's only one witness, I'm a masa shadule. They only actually, based on the testimony of one witness, they don't extract money. They obligate the litigant to swear to refute the witness, which is really like a halacha law, and therefore, again, we wouldn't excommunicate when there's only one witness. Now, Amar Rav Ashi says, Kavina Bei Rav Huna, when we were in the yeshiva of Huna, he asked us the following question. Adam Chashav, when you have a distinguished personality, the Samchi Allah that the government would rely on them, kibei trade, like two witnesses, and mafkim ampume, they would go ahead and extract money based on his word. And therefore, and therefore he should not testify because they can extract money based on one person. But maybe no, since he is distinguished, he's not able to get out of it, and therefore he could testify. Says he want to take a letter stand. It's not clear exactly what the halacha would be. On the one hand, would say that no, you shouldn't. On the other hand, to say that he can't get out of it because a chashuv person, and they're summoning him, he would have to testify. Amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says, "Hi Bar Yisrael, the Zavan le'ara lo'evik that if he sells a piece of property to a non-Jew, a metzra the Bar Yisrael chaver, on the boundary of his fellow Jew, so he has the next door house is a Jew, and the Jew's leaving, he's moving to somewhere else, and he's selling his house. If he sells it to a non-Jew, mishamtinli, we put him a chayim, we excommunicate him. Maitem, what's the reason? So the Gemara says, if it's because of the famous halacha that you have to give the next door to the next door neighbor, and you're giving it selling to a non-Jew, that can't be, because the Gemara says about Mitzi and Makabel, Zavin me'akim, if you buy from a non-Jew, or Zavin me'akim, or you sell to a non-Jew, leka mishram dina b'metzra. There is no halachic problem about bar metzra. So why would you put the guy in chayim? Ella rather says the Gemara Damrinli, because we tell him, our boys li arya mitzray. You went and now you positioned a lion on my boundary because you have over here a non-Jew who is obviously not the same as a Jewish neighbor. So Mashamtinli, we put him in chayim ad the kabbalah kol anasa dasamach masin until he accepts all situations that are going to arise because of the non-Jew. Until then, we put him into chayim.
What is explain to me how that becomes the work? Accepting upon himself, putting up money as a kodan. What?
We'll say that again. That what? What's the word?
How is he accepting upon himself?
Oh yeah, he's gonna take responsibility. He's gonna say whatever problematic circumstances come because of this, that he's gonna take responsibility. Which actually takes brings from being the tam. That's only if the Jew wants to give as much money as the non-Jew. If the non-Jew wants to give more money, very important taisvis, right? Obviously, you don't have to lose out because of that. But if not, then what are you doing? Look, the next Mishnah, continue on this theme about the tax collectors, as we spoke about that. We're concerned that what he takes is inappropriate misappropriation of funds, and therefore it's considered gezel. So what happens if natlu meichsen es chamayre? What happens if the tax collector he could collect, he could take collateral, and he takes your donkey. V'nas lechamayre, he gives you a different donkey instead, or not list mes kususa. Let's say bandits come and steal his coat. V'nas lechamayre, and they give him a different coat. You could keep the coat they gave you. Because the owner gave up hope of getting his coat back from the bandits or from the tax collector. And therefore, as Rashi explains, the new recipient acquires it with Yush and Shini Rishus, because the original owner gave up hope, and it's changing domain, going from the Ganovim over here to the guy who himself got his coat taken by getting this new coat. Now, a related discussion, the Gemara says, the Mishnah says, if someone saves something from a river, you see something flying down the river, I mean the guys are from the marauding troops, or I mean, I list them from bandits. So in this Yashabailim, if the owner gave up hope, in other words, we heard him give up hope, like the Gemara says in Bava Metzia, as we'll see very shortly on Daf Chav Gimel and Bava Metzia, that the guy says, Vailach Asar and Kiss. Oh, whoa, what a loss of money, because what a shame, so he gave up hope. Harei Shalai, so then the guy who saved it could keep it. But if you didn't hear him being Miyayish, it's just stam, then you wouldn't be able to, which Rashi says, well, that's a difficulty. This case of listim that we're bringing here, that we said that one of the things that you say from listim, is a difficulty with listim of the Reisha, because the Reisha made it sound like Mistam he is Miyayish, and the Sefer made it sound like Mistam is not Miyayish, only if we hear him being Miyayish. But the Reisha made it sound like that if you get it from the listim, you could keep it. Now, the Gemara is going to ask, and then the Gemara is going to answer. One is talking about by non-Jewish bandits, and one's going to be talking about by the Jewish mafia, where Mistama, the guy is miyayish. So it depends on who's the robber. Continues the Mishnah. So to a stream of bees in the Yishu, if the owner gave up hope from them, the one who finds them could keep them. Now, it says, a woman or a child is believed to say, from here is where the stream of bees came, and therefore, so then, now that they're believed, the real owner of the bees could go into the friend's field to save his stream of bees. Then hizik, and if he damages by trying to save his bees, he pays what he damages. Avol, but what happens if the bees settle on the friend's branch? Now he's afraid to take each bee one at a time because then the bees are going to run away. So we have machlokes in the Mishnah. Tanna Kama says lo yoketz aseichai. He's not allowed to cut off the guy's branch to take them all at one time, even though manas lit nadam. Even if I'll pay you for the branch. No, you can't. Shmuel ben Naish, Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, he says no. You can even cut off the guy's branch and give him the money for the branch. That is allowed from halacha, as the Gemara is going to explain. So the Gemara says, "Tanulin braysa im natal." If a guy took a donkey from the tax collector, he says the braysa, you have to give it back to the original owners, which Rashi points out obviously that the braysa is disagreeing with the Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that was the opening halacha of the Mishnah. If they took from you a donkey, they gave you a donkey, you let it keep it. The braysa says no. If you took it, you have to give it back to the original owners. Says the Gemara, ksavar, because this Tana holds yiyish kedi. Just if the owner giving up hope in the hand of the tax collectors, loy kani. The tax collector does not acquire it just with yiyush, without giving any money, or shina maisa changing it at all. So when it comes to the second guy, this is the problem. What I mean, isn't there shina rishus? Umikacha from the beginning be isura saliyade. When it came to the hand of this recipient, it came to him in a prohibited state. So he has it now in the state of isser, and therefore that's why he would have to give it back. Those that say that im bola hachzer. The words are not that machzer l'ba'alim. The words of the Brayso should say im bola hachzer, meaning because he's a chassid, he's a pious person. If he's coming to give it back, then yachz l'ba'alim Hashem, you should give it back to the original owner. Meaning, don't give it back to the tax collector. Like say, I don't want your stolen goods. No, once you have it, give it back to the original owner. Maitem, what's the reason? According to this version, it's not. It's the other way. Yish kadikani. Just the only giving of hope is an acquisition, and the truth is, therefore, the recipient would be able to keep it. Let's say the guy said, I don't want money that's not mine. Then he should give back to the original owner. Now the Mishnah said, we said in all these cases that if the tax collector took your donkey or took your coat and they give you back a different one, you could keep it. Because the owner already gave up hope, don't worry, you can keep it. And therefore said, like Rashi says, there's yish with shina rishus, and therefore you could go ahead and keep it. Now, the Gemara qualifies as teaching. Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says, Lo shanu, we didn't learn this halacha, ela listim oivikochavim. Only if the robbers were non-Jews. But if they're Jewish robbers, then this would not have the halacha. Why not? Why wouldn't we say the owner's going to be miyayish then? So that therefore you can't keep the coat or the donkey that they're giving you from someone else. Savar, he thinks that lamachar tomorrow nikidna lebedina. What's going to happen is I'll take him to court. He's a Jew. I'll take him to Bezin. So Mashi asks, he says, to the contrary, the logic would be the opposite. Akum, by non-Jews, didayin begesi, that they judge with arrogance. Lo meyayish, the Jew who's the victim is not going to give up hope, because he's like, I'll be able to get it back. Yisrael, even the Amri Meimar, by Jews, meretasach, they talk. Yeah, go give it to him. But they don't hit you over the head with sticks. So it's not going to help. Or another version, another interpretation is that they tell the victim, who said like you said, bring witnesses that he stole from you. But you go to Bezdin until you get your money back. You go to court, you get. So miyayish. So to the contrary, when it is a Jewish bandit, then he gives up hope. By the guy, he thinks I'll be able to get something. So the Gemara actually agrees to that. The Gemara says, you're right. If we're going to say this qualification of Rav Ashi, it's a sefer, but it's actually said on the next halacha of the Mishnah, not this. Hamatzla and the Gir says min hagayis. If someone says from the troops or min halistim, from the bandits, so the Mishnah said, im nisyayish habaylim, if the owner gives up hope, then the Mishnah says harei l'shalai. So the inference was, oh, that's stam aloi. But unspecifically, if we don't know, then loy, then no, you can't keep it. On that is the qualification of Rav Ashi, and he says like this: Lo shana ela akum. We only learned this halacha if the bandit is a non-Jew, because they judge arrogantly. And yeah, if you convince the judge, you can go ahead and get it back. So therefore, that's why we're not presuming that and again, this was the contradiction we had the Reish and the Seif, and that's what the Gemara is qualifying. Depends. And we first had Rav Ashi, we thought he was qualifying the ratio. We're saying now it's on the Sefer because the logic is the other way around. That only by a non-Jew, then he's confident he'll get it, and if he's not Stama, he's not Miyash, Mashub the Dayan the Begaisi, they judge arrogantly. Well, he's listed Yisrael, but if the bandit was a Jew, even the army Maimer, since all they do is they talk, and you don't get anything, Miyash, actually that's where he's going to give up hope. So again, that resolves the contradiction, and that's what the logic is more, that you're going to be Miyash more by a Jew than by a non-Jewish bandit. Now, relating back to the halacha, the Mishnah, the Gemara says, "Nan hasim." We learned about in the Mishnah Masechtas Kalim. It says, "Oyrish balabayis." Regarding hides, the skin of an animal which you turn into leather. So, if a regular person skinned his animal, machshavim mitamasam. If he thinks that, you know what, I want to use this piece of hide for something that I don't have to do any more work with it. For example, let's say for some type of a placemat or for a bed. It's usable right now as a piece of leather. There's no more production that has to go through. It automatically right now is susceptible to tumah. What happens is halachas of tumah, it's only when something has already finished its process that it becomes a kli, there's makabel tumah. So if the guy thinks, you know what, I want to use it right now in the state it is, just that thought will make it tumah because it's now a kli. But v'shel abadan, a tanner, a leather tanner, who his profession is to process pieces of leather, where presumably the skins that he has is there for selling, there, ein machshavim metamasin, his thought does not make him a kabel tama. Why? Because if someone's going to come to buy it, he's going to sell it to them. Turns out, at the end, the guy who buys it wants to use the leather to make shoes. That means to say it's not gemar malach yet. And therefore, his thought is not significant because you're not really the one who's going to use it. It's really going to be about the one who's buying it. Now, here's where we have a machlekes. What happens shel gazlan? Remember, a gazlan and a ganav is different. A gazlan is someone who straight up walks up and just grabs away your purse. And the ganav is a guy, middle of the night, opens up your window in the basement, and he sneaks in and he takes stuff away. So, shel gazlan, says the Mishnah, a guy who just robbed your piece of leather, his thought process is not going to make it tameh because it's not his. Because the victim knows who took it from him, so he's not miyash, doesn't give him hope. He says, I'll get it back from him. But a thief, there his machshava is mitamasin. If he thinks I want to use it for this, it will make it susceptible to tameh because the owner gave up hope. He doesn't know who the case could be cold in a week. You know, he doesn't know who took it. So therefore, he gives up hope. So therefore, we consider it as miyuyish, and then the ganav, it's considered his to make it susceptible to tumah. Shimon he says chilav adram. He says no, the exact opposite. Shal gazlan, since the guy took it from him straight up, and he wasn't able to stand up to him, he gives up hope because he's like, I'm not going to get it, but this guy's a difficult person. Machshav mitamasin. Then his thought process will make it tumah because he's like the balabayis. Shal ganav, on the other hand, a machshav mitamasin. A thief, his machshava will not make acceptable tamah because the owner does not give up hope. He thinks, okay, I'll find this guy, this rat, this guy he sneaks in the middle. He's obviously someone who's scared, and I'll find him and I'll get it back. So inverse logic. Now, there's a machlekes ama ula. Ula qualifies, and he says machlekes bistam. So it's a little bit of halal cup. There's a machlekes in this machlekes. He says that this machlekes regarding gazlan and ganav is only where we didn't hear the owner giving up hope. So that's where machlekes. One opinion held that stam geneva is yish bailam and not by stam gezela, and the other one held the opposite. Stam gezela is yish bailam and stam geneva is not. So when we don't know any other way, that's where we have the machlekes. Al biyadua, but when it's known, in other words, we heard the guy saying, "Ay, what a loss." Everyone would agree that just the guy giving up hope would be a kinyan, and therefore, even according to Reb Shimon by Ganav, and even according to Rabbanan by Gazlan, it would be automatically the guys, and yes, his machshava would be able to make it tameh. That's how Ula explains. But Rabba, he disagrees. He says, no, biyadua nami machlekes. Even if you knew that the guy was meyayish, we still have the machlekes. What's the pshat? So Rashi explains that even if we heard the guy giving up hope, The Rabbanan still say by Gazlan, it's not Yish. Why? Because every single moment the guy thinks, I'll take him to court. And the same thing as Reb Shimon by the case of a Ganav. So, Omalei Abai l'Rabba, Abai says to Rabba, no, loitifik de Ula. You should not be disagreeing with Ula. Why not? Because Ketitnan b'masnitin. We learned in the Mishnah of the case of the hides of Taharas, that says, Kavasei, it says like Ula. Because the Mishnah says like this. It says, Lafish lo'inisyar shabayim. That because the owner didn't give up hope, so therefore, that's why we're saying that the guy's machshava cannot make it tameh. Now, time in the lo'inisyar shabayim. The reason is because the owner didn't give up hope. Ab nisyar shabayim, if the owner gave up hope, halacha is harelu shaloi. It is the ganavs or the gazans or whoever it is, and this machshava is going to make it tummy. So you see, like Ula, that it's only when we didn't hear the guy giving up hope. But if we did, then everyone would agree that it would be yish kadi would be kani. So Amalei Rabbi said to him, no, anan us lafi she'ein yish labayla masninala. We learn that his yish is not a yish. It's always not going to be effective. As Taisa explains, he's not really editing the Mishnah. He's explaining when it says that Lafisha Loy Nisyash Abaylim, it doesn't mean because we didn't hear him not being Miyayish. We say he doesn't really mean it. Even if he says, oh, I give up hope, he didn't give up hope, and that's why we have the machlekes that between Shimon and the Bava Kama. Even in the case of when Yadu, when we know they're Miyayish, even so we have the machlekes regarding Ganav and Gaza. Now the Gemara asks on Rabbah from our Mishnah. This is why it relates back why we brought this in. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, if the tax collectors took his donkey, etc. Now, as Rashi points out, that a meiches, a tax collector, is like a gazlan. He straight up goes and says, give me this, and he takes more than what he's supposed to, as we said in the previous daf. Whereas listim, which is the other case we said in the Mishnah, we said two cases in the Mishnah. If you look at the first words of our Mishnah, we spoke about notlu meiches neschamayroi, we spoke about notlu listim es kesusai. So listim, a bandit, we qualify like a ganav. He's not straight up, as the Gemara is going to explain shortly. So we have ganav and gazan in our Mishnah. So the Gemara says, wait a second, Mani, who's the Tana of our Mishnah that we're presuming that the owner is miyayish? Because that's what we spoke about. So if the tax collector or the bandit takes your donkey or takes your jack and they give you a different one, we said you could keep it. Why? Because Mistama, the guy who his was taken from before, who they're giving you his, was Mistama miyayish. Wait a second, that's not like anybody. Rabbanan, if it's like Rabbanan, Kasha Gazan. The Rabbanan had said in this mission that we just quoted, they had said that by a Gazlan, there's no yish. And here we're saying that by the Moichis, who's a Gazlan, there is yish. And here Rabbi Shimon, Kasha Ganav. Rabbi Shimon said that by Ganav, there's no yish. And here we're saying that by Listim, there is yish. So who is it like? It's either you can't have Galam and Gazlan. So the Gemara says, no, I'll prove to you now why it's difficult in Rabbah. Bishlim Ulai, understand according to Uladama that he said Biyadu Akani, that he said the whole machlokes was only by stama. But when when the guy said straight out, he says, yes, I was miyayish. Then everyone agrees it's gonna be years. Chanam Biyadu B'Dibrakol. Now the mission is not difficult. Is when you heard the guy say Vayla Chasar and Kiss, and then according to everyone would agree Galam and Gazlan. It's going to be considered as years, and therefore you're going to be kaina. But El Rabba don't be doing that machlekes. According to Rabba, that he said that even when you hear the guy saying I'm a yayish, it's not considered as years. So Hamani, who's the Mishnah Lo Rabban Rabbi Shimon, it's not like either one of the Tanoim because they hold their exclusivity of Gana versus Gazlan by even when you do. Says the Gemara, no balistim benzuyim. When we spoke about in the Mishnah listim, it's not a Ganav. It was armed bandits. Who is a Gazlan. He comes straight up with his AK-47, he walks up to you, and he demands your money. Oh, so that's a Gazlan. Okay, so the Rabbi Shimon here, the Mishnah could be like Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon held that there's only Stama Yish by Gazlan, not Ganav. The Meiches and the Listim are both Gazlanim and not Ganavim. Which is, as Toys
because he doesn't know them?
No, because the Gazlan is straight up, he's too difficult. Yeah, Gazlan, Reb Shimon holds you're never going to get your money back because he's way too difficult. He's a guy who walks up with a rifle, you're not getting your money. Ganav, he thinks the guy's sneaky, he's hiding, you'll find him, you'll get him. and therefore that's why you're going to get it. Now Taisa says even according to the one that holds that list of Mizuyin is a Ganev, that's regarding paying kefil, but he's still called a Gazlan, and therefore he's going to be miyayish. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, Hainu Gazlan. In other words, like Rashi explains, you already said a case of Gazlan. Meichas, the tax collector, the guy walks straight up to you and says, give this to me, and he's got leverage on you. So that's like a Gazlan type. But so then why do you need two cases? The Gemara says, yeah, we said two different types of cases. One's a tax collector and one's an armed bandit. So it's not difficult on Rabbah. So the Gemara says, Tashma, try to bring another raya from the following brisa. Again, not like Rabbah. The brisa says like this: Haganev, a thief, a gazlan, a robber, va'anas, which Rashi explains when you say the word anas by the word gazlan. If you already said gazlan, usually anas would mean the gazlan. But when you already say gazlan, so then the word anas would mean a chamsin. A chamsin is a guy who he forces you to give it to him, but he gives you money, he pays you for it. So, but he's still in this category. So these three types of characters, hekdesh and hekdesh, if they take this item that they forcibly took, and they make it to their highly yidin, they make it hekdesh, they give it to the base of Mikdash. Or trumas and truma, they give it truma. It's going to be truma. If they make a ma'aser, it's going to be ma'aser. So you say, wait a second, man, who's the time of the brisa? Iraban, if it's Rabban, kasha gazan. How could that be? If it's Gzela, they held that the Baal is Mistam not Mayayish, how could he be Makdishin? If Shimon Kasha Gan, if Shimon, the same type of question. If Shimon, they never go to Gan because Mistam is not Mayayish. So the Gemara says again, Bishlam and the Ulubi and according to Adam that he says, be you do a kani that if you knew that the guy said I'm Mayayish that he's going to acquire it, okay, Chadam be you do you could say, great, the Bryce is coming where you heard him say I'm being Mayayish, that would be like everyone that it's going to be his. Rabbi be doing the machlekes again, but according to Rabbi that says that machlek is Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan, even when you hear him saying "Abi miyayish," so Hamani, who's tired of the Bryce, Rabbi Shimon is like either one of them. So Gemara says no, Hachanam here also belistim mezuyin, but Rabbi Shimon the same type of answer. We're talking about armband. It's like Rabbi Shimon that says that it's a gazlan, so both cases are gazlan, and therefore that's why it's going to be considered a stama yish. If that's the case, hainu gazlan. So you already have a case of gazlan. So let's trade up the gazlan, saying two cases of gazlan. Or if anybody say maybe you could say a different approach. Hamas Nita, this Bryce is Rebbe. He's going like Rebbe. Because he's telling in the Bryce, Rebbe Amma, he says, Ganev ki Gazlan. That a Ganev is the same thing like a Gazlan, as we continue with Beis. And the Kaimalan, and we know, as the Gemara tells us later on, when Rebbe said Ganev it's ki Gazlan, what does he mean to say? Is ki Gazlan Rebbe Shimon. Meaning, just like Rebbe Shimon says, that by a Gazlan, that you're going to be kaina, so too, a Ganev is also going to be kaina, and that we're stam and miyayish in both cases, meaning not like the Rabban hold like by Gazi not going to be kaina, and that's why by both of them we're saying that according to Rebbe you're going to be kaina, because again it's going like Rebbe, and therefore it's not difficult that it's not like Reb Shimon or like Rabban. So actually the Gemara goes to explain now what we just presumed. Gufa, that we just quoted Rebbe Emi, he says, I say Ganev kagazlan. Although the Rabbanan saying, it's only by Ganev, and Reb Shimon saying only by Gazlan, if we're mistam miyayish, he says, no, I say they're both the same. Now both had the following question. Kagazan the Rabban come. What does it mean to say? The thief is like what the Rabban hold by Gazlan v'loy kani, and therefore you're not going to acquire by either one of them, because again the Rabban held that by Gazlan you're not miyayish. Or Kagazan Rabbi Shimon come. Maybe saying like what Rabbi Shimon holds by Gazlan and Bekani, therefore both the Gazlan and the Gazlan are going to acquire. So the Gemara Tashma to bring right from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, we said that when the tax collector or the listim take it, your stomach begin to be miyayish, and therefore you could keep what they give you from someone else who they stole it from. Said Mani, who is the Mishnah like? Like we already said this already before. We said that it's either one or the other. How could you have both cases of the meichas who's a gazlan and from the listener who's a ganav? So yeah, maybe you say Rebbe kagazlan Rebbe Shimon come. If you say, great, Rebbe who's in the brisa that he says ganav is like gazlan. He's like gazlan Rebbe Shimon, Bekani, and they're going to acquire Hamani Rebbe. Great, the Mishnah is Rebbe and Mishnah Machakani. They're going to acquire by both of them of the listim of the bandit and of the gezela of the meichas. But you say that Rebbe holds that the Ganav is like the Gazan of the Rabbanan, meaning V'loy Kani not going to acquire not only by Gazan but also by Ganav. So here's the Mishnah. It's not like either one of them. Again, like we already rejected Amman Aleph, but listen, we're talking about armed bandits. Rebbe Shimon, who again, because that's a case of Gazan, and therefore that's why we're going to say Stam is Miyayish. Gazan. Again, this is a little repetitive, but the Gemara is saying because it's trying to bring a different point. So Trey Gavni Gazan says the Gemara, there's two types of Gazan. So Gemara says, okay, Toshima trying to bring another. Again, this is the same real Gemara that we had already in Amman Aleph. We're just utilizing it, trying to explain the Shitas Rebbe. Again, we quote on Amman Aleph. The Brisa says the thief, the robber, and the extortionist. Hekdesh and hekdesh. If he takes what he stole and he's makdash, it's hekdesh. Truma, if he makes a truma, it's truma. Meiser makes a meiser, it's meiser. Mani, who's the town of the Brisa? Irabanan, hakribi kasha gazlan. You don't say Stama Miyayish by Gazlan. Rabbi Shimon Kashigam, because you don't hold Stama Miyayish by Gazlan. And Yamid B'Shleima. So if you say Gam Gazlan, when Rebbe says that the Gam Gazlan is Rabbi Shimon coming, saying like how Rabbi Shimon holds like by Gazlan, that's how it's by Gazlan. Oh, great. Shemach Gazlan, that's what you're going to acquire. Gam Gazlan Rabbanan. So that means you're not acquiring by either one of them. So Amani is time of the Brisa. Must be that he holds like Rabbi Shimon. Says the Gemara, no. But listen to Mizuim Rabbi Shimon here. We could say that the bandits over here are armed bandits, and it's like Rabbi Shimon, and therefore it's cases of Gezela. It says Gazlan, so that's Gazlan. It says, well, yeah, Trika Gazlan. We're saying when we said Haganav, we mean the armed Ganav, and it's like a Gazlan, and therefore that's why it's going to be Stamayir. Only Rav Ashli Rabbi says, Tashma, I'll try to bring a raya because the Masni Rebbe, we're trying to figure out Rebbe's opinion in regards to when he says Ganav Gazlan. He said, I'll prove it to you because Rebbe himself taught Rabbi Shimon B'rei. He was with Abbas Abanim, and he's teaching his son Rabbi Shimon. And he said, explaining the Mishnah, he says, and we quoted this already, we said on the previous Mishnah, we quoted the Daf Kofiyat Aleph, Kofiyat Gimel, Loi Davishish Barchais Mamish, says this, that when the Hagoiz Lamachal as Banov, we said that if in Yishba Achayis Nachasim, that they're going to be responsible. So Rebbe taught his son Rabbi Shimon, they didn't say something that is literally karka, but even if it's something that's just well known, like a piece of land, which is a cow, and he's plowing with the children, the Yisayimim, or a donkey, and they're using it to take the packages. So that you would always have to give back after the father passed away. And they covered Avin, like we said, because of the dignity of the father. Simply, it's embarrassing for the father's legacy. So time they covered Avin, it sounds like the reason is because of the dignity of the father. Halav covered Avin loy. But if not for the element of their father's dignity, then we wouldn't say this. Oh, so obviously, Gazlan, according to Rebbe, you would acquire like Reb Shimon. Because we're saying here the father was a goizel lamach. We're talking about the father stole it and he left it over for his kids. We said if not for the covenant of the father, they wouldn't have to give it back. Why not? Because you're kaina, like Reb Shimon. Oh, if that's what he holds by Gazlan, so then when he says Ganav is like Gazlan, obviously he holds that you're kaina by both of them. Shmamina, we infer Rebbe Gazlan, Reb Shimon come Shmamina, we just proved. Because obviously Rebbe, who's teaching his son Reb Shimon, who's saying in the halacha of our opening Mishnah of this perek, that he says, Hagoizel, someone robs, Gzela, and he leaves over for the orphans, that we said if there's a chayes nechasim, they have to give it back. And he said, no, not just a chayes nechasim, a cow, anything that's a car or something that everyone knows about because of kavod avin. It sounds like without kavod avin, they wouldn't have to give it back. Well, why wouldn't you have to give it back? Because Gzela, the owner is meyayish. So that's like Reb Shimon's shita by Gzela that you're meyayish. Stam and Meyayish. So if you're saying Ganav is like Gazlan, so that means you're saying that Ganav is just like Gazlan and Reb Shimon, which is that both of them you would be kaina, and that's like what we said on the top of this Amud. That was another interpretation of explaining who the Bryce was like. So the Mishnah continued and said, except there's a stream of bees. The Mishnah said, in this Yayishu, if the owner gave up hope, then Hariyah Shalai, the guy who finds the stream of the bees could keep it. So he's going to what's this and also? Like Rashi explains, obviously you could be kind with Yish. Why would a stream of bees be any different than anything else? That like if it's down the stream of the river and you save it, that you would think that you wouldn't be able to be kind. So it says, now this is what the Mishnah is saying. Even by a stream of bees, the kinyan did Rabbanan where that's only a rabbinic acquisition, meaning there's no theft of the guy's bees only because of darkei shalom, ways of peace. Because bees are hefker. As the Brisa teaches in the Chul Nafkov Memalev, that the doves of the dovecot and the doves of the upper loft, there's no problem about gezel. It's only because of darkei shalom. So, which actually Tais is bothered. He says, why can't the guy be kind of in their rice when he picks up the beehive? But al kapanim, that's how the Gemara is explaining that really it's only rabbinically that you acquired the bees. So it's all good that when you would have thought to say, this, it's only rabbinically that you acquire it. Then we could presume, meaning we would have thought to say that even without knowing, we would presume that the guy gives up hope because it's not really his. That's what we're teaching you, though, in this Yashabaylam. That's what we're saying. If the guy gives up hope, yes, it's really for the inference that we want to teach you. If he was not miyayish, then you cannot keep it, even though it's only rabbinic kinyan. And you're right, the chiddush of the fact that he's miyayish, that's not a chiddush. Why it would be different than anything else if the guy's miyayish? The chiddush of the other way, it's only because we heard him miyayish. If not, even though it's only rabbinically acquired him, you cannot take it away his bees. Now the Mishnah had said, it says, a woman and a child, they're believed to say that the stream of bees came out of here, and therefore, again, the guy knows that these bees over here are his bees, so if he wasn't Miyayished, he'd go out into the other guy's field, and he could get his bees back. So the Gemara wonders, Isha b'katan and the Eidis, and then what? A woman and children, they're able to say testimony? Since when could they testify that we could believe them to go and take monetary matters because of what they're saying? Some of you read the Mishnah. He says, we're talking about where, before we heard the child say anything, the owner was already running after these bees, where this is what's called raglain ledavar. There's indicating factors that this is this guy's bees. And v'isha v'kad masich lefi tumam. The woman and the child, they were just instantly saying, they were saying, wow, look at that, look at that, the stream of bees came out over here and they went there. Even a guy we believe by masich lefi tumai. So that's the case we're saying that isha v'kad, that they're innocently saying, then we could go based on what they're saying. Now, Amar Rav Ashi says, masich lefi tumai kosher. Now, it's not true. Just innocently saying something is not valid. Illa idus isha b'lvad. It's only valid for the testimony of allowing a woman to remarry. Meaning, if let's say they heard children saying, "Whoa, we just came from this big, huge levaya to bury this guy," as the Gemara says, the last part of base, and they hear that that's this woman's husband, and they're just innocently saying it, that's the only place where it's going to be valid. It's not valid any other place. So the Gemara, what do you mean? I'm leaving the Rav Ashi. Says, "V'loi, really? It doesn't work anywhere else?" The stream of bees, that's a case that we believe the women and children when they're just innocently told, and we do believe it's not about a woman just getting remarried. Iguna, we're makel by iguna. No, this is another area of halacha too. Says that's an exception. The stream of bees is different because the kinyan rabbanan it's only rabbinic acquisition, and there it's where it's going to help. But by biblical law, no, we would not rely on the innocent conversation of women and children. So really, the right light doesn't work by biblical law. I have read the Mishnah. He says, there was a story with an individual. He was instantly talking, schmoozing with some guys in the coffee room, and he was saying, I remember when I was a young child, and I was riding on my father's shoulders. My father took me out of yeshiva. Maybe they're playing that music when the father comes with his rifle and taking him out of yeshiva, putting him on his shoulders. And v'hivshituni esketanti, he took off my shirt. V'tfiluni lechel b'truma l'erev, and he put me into the mikveh so that I should eat truma in the evening, because it's normal for young children to play around in the mud with all the bugs and all the tummy things. And Reb Chanina, he finished the story, the narrative that he said, my friends stayed away from me because of my truma. They didn't want to make him a tamei or make the truma tamei. But currently, they used to call me, maybe he was in therapy and he was talking about what happened when he was younger, Yochanan Eichel Chalas. He was Yochanan, the eater of Chalas. Meaning Chalas is one of the matnas kahuna. And what happened was, Ve'alehu Rebbe Lakun al Piv. Based on what he said, Rebbe actually promoted him to kahuna based on what he was saying. So you see, the Masich Lefi Tumai, the guy was instantly talking with another guy. Rebbe overheard him. He says, "You're a kohen." You see, the father took him to Taiva Nikva, and they are Yechon Chachalas or whatever this and that. So you see that for biblical halacha of kahuna, you see that Masich Lefi Tumai does work. No, but Truma D'Rabbanan. It was actually Bizman Azeh. Rebbe lived after the Churban. As there's a mandam that holds that the kedusha that was in there was not for all future times, and therefore the truma is only rabbinic, and therefore that rabbinically we said like by the chil shel devarim, but for biblical halacha we would not believe. So the Gemara continues to ask, really, is that really so? By biblical halacha we don't allow masech levitumai. But v'kiyasar Rav Dimi came, he said Rav Chana kartigna, v'amrla, some say it was Rav Acha kartigna. Mishtah, he was talking, and he said Ma'aseh b'lefnei b'shuma Levi. It was the Matzah Shabbos, saying of a Matzah Tzadikim. Says the story came from the B'shuma Levi. V'amarla, some say it was a Ma'aseh b'lefnei Rebbe. The story came from the Rebbe. But then the Kechad was a one child. Shemasich lefi tumai v'amar. He was innocently saying over Ani ve'imi nishbeini lebeina akim. Me and my mother were taken captive amongst the non-Jews. Like we have this Nebuch Laida, we have this Bezman Hazeh. And Yitzasi l'shav mayim. I went out to draw water. I went to the sink, to whatever. Daiti alimi, I was thinking about my mother. Obviously, there's Yamach Shemamniks, who knows what they're going to do. So he was always paying attention to cover for his mother. Look at Eitzim, and I went to get wood. Daiti alimi, I was thinking about my mother. And Vasiya Rebbe al Piv lekahuna. Meaning, as Rashi points out, even though you could have that they were mezana with her, which is a issa deraisa, a zoyna lo yikachu. A zoyna is not allowed to get married to a kohen, based on what the child was innocently saying, that I was always watching my mother, and I saw that these terrorists didn't do anything to my mother. Rebbe let his mother get married to a kohen. So you see, Masech Levi Tumah does work, not just for iguna, it works for other halachas, even though they're biblical. It says Gemara, no b'shvuya hikilu. By a captive, they were lenient. Would say Chassidus, you could always learn. We should learn b'shvuya hikilu. They make it lighter for the captives. They should all be redeemed mamish bizman azeh mamish right now. But al kapanim, Rashi tells us that a captive is really just a suffix. We don't really know. It's a doubtful situation. So in halacha b'chlal, as the Gemara tells us in Ksubis and Avchav Gimel, other places, that we're leaning regarding the halachas of captives, and therefore you're right. Only by Eidus Isha for Iguna, which is Deraisa, that's the only place where it really helps. We don't find anywhere biblically Masech Levi Tumah helps. Shvuya, although it's a biblical halacha, that's different than Molin over there because it's only a doubt, and that's why Rebbe allowed his mother to get married based on what he's saying. Now the Mishnah said that we had this machlokes in the Mishnah. Tanagama says you're not allowed to cut off his branch to get your stream of bees back, but the other mandama said no, you're allowed to. You're actually allowed to cut off his branch and take all the bees back at one time. So the Gemara brings a brisa, elaborates on this. Time to learn the brisa. He says, who he was that other mandama. He says, tonight pasnu, yeah, it's a stipulation of the Jewish court system. You're allowed to go down to your friend's field, but you could cut off his branch to save your stream of bees. The victim, he could take the value of his branch from the stream of bees of his friend. And this is a stipulation of the court, meaning that we have this halacha of the Mishnah on the next daf, in Kuf Tez Vav. If let's say one guy is coming with his barrel of wine, this guy's coming with a barrel of honey, and the barrel of honey cracks. The halacha is that this guy could pour out his wine, and he could save his friend's honey, which is more valuable. And again, when he gets compensated for the value of his wine, it's from the honey of his friend that will get compensated. So it's a stipulation of the court. If let's say one guy's donkey who was carrying linen dies on the road. Now this other guy's donkey is only carrying wood. Well, obviously linen is more valuable. The Tanai of the Bezin that he should unload his wood, and now load up his donkey with the guy's linen. And now he gets compensated from the actual linen. He'll take the value of his wood. It was with this intention that Yeshua ben Nun bequeathed the land of Israel to the Jewish people, that when it's a situation of value to the other person, that then yes, you will go ahead and allow the loss of the other person, and then you'll get compensated from that other person, from the thing that you're saving for that person. Continue to look at the next Mishnah. Continuing this theme of this last parak of Bava Kama Daf regarding robbing. So it says the Mishnah like this. It's very Judaic a Mishnah. What happens if a guy recognizes his vessel, so his bowl, or his svarim, his books? He recognizes it in the possession of someone else. He sees this guy's learning from his art scroll, Bava Kama. Now, what happened was that word got out that this guy had his house broken into on the last week or 2 weeks before, a month, whatever, in town, that his stuff was stolen. And now he sees that someone else is learning from his sefer. So halacha is yishavaloi lekeach kamanasan. What happens is that the buyer, meaning the guy bought from someone else. The guy said, "I bought this art scroll. Some guy on the street was selling it, half price, So he swears kamanasan, how much he gave for the Gemara, the yitel, and he takes that amount, and then he has to give that Gemara, that bowl, back to the guy, which, as Rashi explains, we're talking about lifnei yish, and Tosfos proves this, that it's talking about before the guy was meyayish. Now, vim lav, but if let's...
Or does he have to have aiding to say we know that this item belongs to this guy? Because the guy says the sefer. Yeah, it could be another sefer very similar.
So the Gemara is going to explain. The Gemara is going to explain exactly why we're presuming this. The Gemara is going to ask this question.
name would be
No,
the
yeah.
thing, would
Right.
be obvious thing. No, I don't think it's talking about the name of it. The thing is, do we believe him just like this? And
Right. So this is going to be the point of the Gemara about this idea of Yotza. The Gemara is going to ask similar questioning. The Gemara, and this is the idea of like that's what the Mishnah is telling us that Yotza Shem Geneva, that the word got out. This just proves that it's before Yish because people don't usually give up hope from their svarim. Says, and he talks about no matter who the Ganavim are, So this is the guy wasn't Miyayish yet, and therefore it's still his, and also the word got out that it was stolen. So therefore he could. The guy just says, okay, I paid this amount. He compensated him. He has to give it back. Now v'melav, and this is the point. Well, let's say there was no word out in town that, and this is basically what you're asking. Really, is what the Mishnah is saying on some level. If word didn't come out that this guy had a break-in. So lav kol menu. So he has no rights. Shaniyam, I say marchon la'acher. It's not true that this guy, yeah, it's your safer. Maybe even his name wasn't so. Who knows? But he says you maybe sold it to someone else. And this guy bought it from him. So that doesn't prove anything. That even if it has your, we'll see in the Gemara exactly what's the identifying features. But the fact that this guy has your Gemara, why should we know that it was stolen? Maybe you sold it to someone else, and then the guy bought it from me. It doesn't do anything. Now the Gemara says like this. The Gemara asks the question: if let's say word gets out that he had a Geneva in town, who cares? We have to be concerned that maybe he actually listened to what the Gemara is asking even more than this. The Gemara says maybe he actually sold it, but who knew? And he's letting the word out that I had a break-in. So he sells off all his stuff. And he says, "Oh, and the bus is nice." The guy puts it out. Done, Bloom, and he makes up some name. He says it was a break-in and Tom's River, and this that. What does it prove? I mean, the rabbi says no. We're talking about where people came into his house. Omad, they got up. V'hifkin balayla. Most people don't know this word v'hifkin. They know it for hafkana, right? V'hifkin balayla v'omad. They got up and they were screaming in the middle of the night, and he said, "Oh, niknevu kelai, my stuff have been stolen." So the Gemara still doesn't like this. Kolshkin ilu matzah. Now for sure he has bias. In other words, he found an excuse that when he sold his stuff, and he regrets this, he wants his stuff back, but he already sold it. He knows that that the guy sold it to another buyer. So what he does is he gets up and he starts screaming in the middle of the night to make it sound true when he's going to make this claim to say that, oh, it was stolen from me. So the Gemara says, Rav Kahana Messiah B'Mishmein Rav, he ended off in the name of Rav. No, we're talking about where they were, again, these Gaz and Zimach Shemams, there were caves, there were these tunnels dug into his house. And, moreover, the people who were staying in his house, they left. And they had these bundles of stuff on their shoulders. And everyone was saying, this guy's vessels were stolen. Okay, so now we know, the guy's probably saying the truth. It was stolen from him, and therefore, if he recognizes his sefer or his stuff, he can go and get it back, and the guy has to, the guy will get his money back, but he gets his stuff back. So the Gemara, how do you know? Maybe this guy had his kalim stole, not his svarm. How do you know that this is his Gemara Bava Kama? So he says, no, they also said that these were his svarm.
Is that considered a raya? Doesn't he need to have a raya? I mean,
again, I know, right? So I'm saying, right.
So for me to be able to demand somebody else to swear in order, I should.
Right. I'm saying. So you're saying you asked this yesterday about Metzber is not an absolute. If we have evidence of something, so then we're going to say.
Is that good enough evidence to
well, we're saying we had the Gemara is in the middle of asking these questions, but we have people who recognize that these were his stuff, and they said his stuff was stolen. I'm saying, but we have svarm that was stolen, right? They said that's what the Gemara just said. Svarm. So it said svarm was stolen, and then this guy recognizes his sefer over here, and we know it's a sefer, right? It's just that we said we said maybe he sold it. We said we were concerned maybe he sold it, right? So again, you have to know exactly what the identifying features are. But the point is, it sounds like no one's denying that. And Tais discusses that really. Tais discusses that he says that about what the lekeach is claiming. But the point is that So we're saying, yeah, look, the guy has a Geneva in town, and the guy he bought a sefer. We're presuming it's from him. So the Gemara says, "Valechish demazutri," but maybe he had these pocket-sized Gemaras because on Ravi, and he's claiming maybe his pocket-sized Gemaras were stolen. He's claiming the big art scroll, the big one. How do you know? They says no. The Amri sefer plainly. They said that and that sefer were stolen from him. So maybe his were old ones, and he wants the new ones. He doesn't like when the edges get bent over there. He wants that new one. How do you know? So Maravi says Kigan da Amri is where they say no halalu kelim shaplani. These are this guy's kelim. Halal shaplani. These are his svarim. So therefore, Tais really explains. In other words, when the word gets out, the bottom Tais says when the word goes out, these are his kelim. These are svarim that the people are carrying, and they recognize that they're new. They don't know that what this guy bought is necessarily his, but they're presuming that this is the ones. Now, so the Gemara now, however, asks on this teaching that Miyam Rav Hachi, did Rav really say this teaching? This is Rav's a teaching. So says, but Rav himself said, Baba Machteres, if someone comes in a tunnel and he digs into someone's house, and he takes vessels and he goes out. Remember, we explained that, how do we know? He says, there's a machteres, and Rav Kahana had explained to Rav, it was a machteres, and people are saying, and this and that, and one of the variables was a machteres, was a tunnel. So making a tunnel, you're saying it actually, that variable makes everything worse, because Rav says specifically when the guy's digging into someone's house and he takes his camel and he leaves, pater, he's actually exempt. So even if the guy was right and this was stolen from him, for that reason himself actually would not be able to get it back. Why? My time. What's the reason? Because when someone is baba machteres, when he comes in by digging in through tunnels, he's liable for death. And again, those yimach shemamniks who made tunnels should also die of misa mishuna. But the Torah tells us if you're digging a tunnel and you find a thief, you're allowed to kill him. Now, if that's the fact, if this stolen item would be by him, he'd be pater because he acquires it with his life. Because you can't prosecute him on both. But the fact that he would be guilty for death, he doesn't have to pay the money. So when he sells to someone else, why does that go back? Why does the buyer have to give it back? The meicher who's selling it to him already acquired it with his blood. So says the Gemara, that's only the kanina bebama machteres. That's only when the guy acquires it, so to speak, when he's coming he's digging in. That initially he's giving up his life to be killed. But this story was they didn't give up their life to be killed because they were in the house. Then we didn't say this halacha. Here these guys they went out through the tunnels, but they weren't meiser nefesh, and therefore they didn't acquire that way. Now, Amar Ravi qualifies this teaching and says, we didn't learn this elabalabais aslim kerkelim. This whole halacha is only said by a guy who would normally sell his stuff. And that's what we're saying. Did he sell it? Was it stolen from him? A regular homeowner who doesn't usually sell his stuff, he doesn't have to have all these variables to say that they knew that it was this and that type of sefer. No, because of course it was stolen from him. And of course you have to give it back to him. How do you know? Maybe the guy needed some money and he sold off his Gemaras. Rav Ashi says, no, but Lamaisa, just enough that word got out that he had a Geneva would be enough for him to get it back. For him to turn the in time.